so happy we alive.
What Jack and Mike have to say at this point. They want to look. They're persuaded what Bill has to say. They're looking at the polls. They're looking. And you know what else? When we look back historically, I always, almost every day, I ask myself, what happened in the 1970s? Shit, we have momentum. 11 states decrim, keep traveling the country. All these amazing things happen. Jimmy Carter comes into office, appoints Peter Bourne as the drug policy advisor. There's a federal decrim bill introduced by Civiletti, the Attorney General, and all of a sudden, wow, what happened? Reagan and everything else, even before Reagan, even the last year and a half of the Carter administration, when Bourne gets replaced by Lee Dugaloff and the decrim bill gets withdrawn, already that stuff happening. We had in the college, the annual polling of college freshmen. In 1979, 51% of college freshmen said they supported marijuana legalization. You know what it was in 1989, 10 years later? 16%. Now we're back up to the mid to low 30s among the college freshmen again. Now when I look back there, the lessons I learned, first of all, is don't reach for that gold ring too fast. Build your base and watch your flanks. Okay, to my mind, what Jack and Mike are doing right now in Alaska and the others is reaching for the gold ring a little too fast. But I'll tell you this, Jack, you created a public education opportunity. I don't necessarily believe that ballot initiative process is the best way to do public education, but you create a moment there. And it's a little more expensive because it's an initiative, but you're up there. So as many of you are motivated to go up there and spread the good word in Alaska, I don't think that's a bad thing to do. Public education is crucially important. Go up there, be up there, spread the word, what we learned in the DC initiative. You know, those guys argue with Bill Zimmer and AMR. They pulled off something there, and they shook the flesh, and they met thousands of people. What I'm not going to do, if it's necessary for morale to say, we're going to win, okay, then we're going to win. But I have to be realistic about what we can really do and what the money will come behind, what we can reach for today and tomorrow and next year, so that in a few years we really do have a shot to grab the gold ring. And you know, we got to watch the flanks. Watch our flanks. You know, right now, remember what happened in the late 70s? There was also a woman named Susan Ruche and a lot of other people who came up, and they had something to say, hang on. They had polls that showed that 10 to 12% of high school seniors were smoking pot every day. And a lot of parents were scared to death. When you see the age of people's first initiation to marijuana use going down and down, you see that op-ed piece in the Washington Post today, people will play that card and scare people. We have to watch out for that. We have to watch our flanks. Watch our flanks. Be careful. Because you know, the Susan Ruches and her ilk, they've become dowdy and silly at this point. They're like the old temperance warriors who, after they had won alcohol prohibition, just became silly and extreme. That's where they are now. But what we don't want is a new generation of them coming up because we failed to watch our flanks. We have to be the people. We have to be the people talking about our kids. And not about just keeping our kids out of jail and prison, but keeping our kids out of trouble with pot, with marijuana, and with other stuff. That's got to be our message. We win. We get the gold ring when we persuade the average American, the 30% swing, that we represent and stand for the safety and security and well-being and good futures of their children better than the drug warriors do. That's it. Got to do on this stuff. My message going forward as we try to build new things for drug policy reform writ large, it's not going to be legalized or even decriminalized. The question I'm going to be asking is, what's the decent way to deal with this stuff? We got a tough problem. You know, we got these substances that we live with. in our society, these substances, these plant products and these synthetic substances that have these tremendously wonderful things about them and these tremendously horrible things about them that can be so tempting and so unattractive. We need to find a decent way to deal with the inevitable fact that these things are in our lives and in our societies. That kids can get involved with this stuff at points where they're vulnerable, and that parents' greatest fear, every parent who wants to put their baby in a bubble and sees that marijuana, joints, those other drugs as the things that'll pop that bubble, we need to reassure them, and oftentimes them is us, because we don't win unless we do that. Now, when Governor Johnson is out there, he's opened up some running room. But when some people got up on the Capitol in Santa Fe 2 weeks ago, smoking marijuana publicly to express their support for Governor Johnson, I don't think he saw that as an expression of support. It wasn't the way to support him. The way to support him is to reaching the parents of New Mexico to persuade them that their interests and their kids' interests. So for me, the question is, what's the decent way to move forward? What's the decent way to protect our kids? What's the decent way to live as a society? That's the question. That's the question. I know we're going to win this one. We've learned a lot of lessons. Let's keep those things in mind. Never lose the passion. Acknowledge that conflict is inherent to any political movement, and what happened here is enormously healthy, right up to Ed Rosenthal screaming at the top of his lungs. Okay? That's part of the process. When you look at drug policy reform as an emerging political and social movement in America, compare us. I've been reading about the history of the gay rights movement, the civil rights movement. You know something? They had more conflict than we do at similar points in their development. We're not doing so bad. So we are going to get there. I think you're all doing great. I think Keith, Allen, fantastic, and Dan and Lester and Dick, what you did to keep it going, fantastic. You are great. See you next year.
Here we are in
sunny
Washington,
D.C.
And
middle of the heart of darkness. A place that's the sausage factory of American social policy, where money talks. And money talks louder and louder ever since the Supremes defined free speech as free spending, which I think is really degrading America and is part of the new subversion that is taking place of remunerative demonic mercantilism, where we have the social institutions that we once knew being subborned and subverted by mercantilia. We've seen religious thought in America give way to icons and popular images. We've really stripped the Christ out of Christmas and substituted it for a festival of mercantilia, which they try to prolong as much as possible into the fourth quarter of the year. And this, unfortunately, has now metastasized and is infesting our social institutions, including medicine, which is a tragedy. Once upon a time, we physicians used to have prerogatives and respect. And this is before the era of the mercantilization of medicine, where it was once fee-for-service and there weren't any third-party payers. On the other hand, we had a well-developed, civil-supported hospital system where everybody knew what the rules were. There was stability and succession. But then in the 80s, with the ascension of the Reagan hegemony, after having destroyed the California mental health system and closed all the hospitals with a fraudulent claim of community psychiatry and shifting the